All right, Danny Kelly is here. Ringer Fantasy Football Show, Ringer NFL Draft Show. I almost said Fantasy Draft Show, which is not a thing, but I mean, I guess technically it kind of is.
It
just
works.
The
It
basis
works.
of what you guys do on a regular basis. Appreciate the time, man. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. The fantasy football season is definitely ramping up, so that's exciting and also a little bit terrifying. But yeah, things are great.
How many drafts have you done right now?
I've done a whole bunch of dynasty rookie drafts. I'm not really out in those best ball streets, so I haven't done a ton of regular drafts yet in terms of season long drafts, but starting to kind of get my bearings on where guys are, being taken and all that stuff, and getting excited about doing a few here. I think we'll probably start in like a week or two doing some drafts.
So when you're a fantasy football expert like yourself, how many leagues do you typically partake in over all of the fantasy football genres?
Way too many. I think I'm going to do like 25 this year or something like that. I've joined a few more redraft leagues. I'm trying to play more redraft because I've got really, really into dynasty for a while there. And I'm like, I have way too many dynasty leagues, and I have dynasty brain a little bit is what I call it. And it's just, you way overvalue young players instead of players that are going to score a lot of points. So I'm trying to recalibrate my brain a little bit to be much better at redraft.
25 is too many.
Yeah, no, I agree. I might join a few more next year.
So now that we've established your bona fides as a fantasy expert, we're going to tear down where you have various 49ers in your rankings. So the rankings that are currently up at, I did a bad job of hosting and I did not have the website ready.
Let me pull it up. Hold on.
Because it's I know it's NFL Draft.
ringer.com/fantasy-football.
So just go to the Ringer and you'll find our rankings.
Go to the Ringer and find the fantasy rankings. But
it's very sortable. It's a wonderfully useful website.
They're the best. I haven't not used it for a draft in like 5 years.
Nice.
It's the very best. But the rankings that are up as we speak are a little bit different than your current rankings. Is that correct?
Yeah, because I'm going to do a rankings refresh here in a little bit here. And in preparation for the show, I kind of like retooled some of my rankings here to drop down 49ers and piss you guys off a little bit. Nice, no, not really. But when we were talking offline, we had mentioned like this is going to be one of those restaurants where I go in and the servers are really mean to me. Like the hosts are super mean to me after everything I say. So that's kind of like what I'm picturing here is like you guys are going to yell at me for all my ranks.
There's a definite possibility of that. I'm not planning on it, but if it happens, it happens. Okay. I'm not gonna say it's for sure gonna happen. So let's just start here. Who is your highest ranked 49er in your current rankings?
Christian McCaffrey. I'm ready to be hurt again kind of deal. And so is he. I have him as the RB5 7th overall. So
you suck at this.
What could go wrong? We know that we can trust everything that Kyle Shanahan and Christian McCaffrey say about injuries. That's one thing we know and appreciate about him. And basically I'm going into this with, you don't try and get 7th place in your league. You're trying to win. And if you lose, so be it. Christian McCaffrey, obviously, if he's healthy and playing, he is going to be maybe the most valuable player in fantasy. The only reason I don't have him number 1 is fear and cowardice, really.
Is there anything that could happen in training camp in the preseason that would have you move him up, or does that fear and inherent cowardice in the way you do these make you keep him there no matter what happens?
I think if he plays and practices, and there's lots of clips on Instagram and Twitter and Blue Sky and all that of him running around and juking and all that stuff, probably move him up a little bit. Right now, I have Chase, Barkley, Bijan, Gibbs, Lamb, and Derrick Henry ahead of him. So kind of like the names in fantasy. Obviously, I think I'll move him up if everything is looking really good and he's practicing. Last year it was basically like, oh yeah, if we had a game tomorrow, I'd be playing, blah, blah, blah. And then 3 weeks later, Monday Night Football hits and he screws over everyone who didn't play, didn't have anybody in their starting spot. So I think there's a lot of people that are still remembering that. And that's kind of scaring them off of him a little bit. But, overall, hoping for the best. You guys give me the take. What what should I be doing here? Am I being too much of a coward, or am I right to be a little bit afraid?
So I've heard from inside the building that Christian has had a great offseason and looks great. So take that for whatever it's worth. And there have been a couple of those social media clips of him making really fast moves and running really well past linebackers and things like that. Like, if I'm with you in the sense that, like, if he's healthy, I think he's probably worth a first round top 5 type pick, but there is that inherent fear. And the big question I will always have with Kyle Shanahan is, like, if you're up 2 scores with 5 minutes left, is Christian McCaffrey going to be getting every single carry in that scenario? Or is Kyle Shanahan finally going to have the wherewithal to, give Isaac Guerrendo those touches? Obviously that could have an impact on fantasy slightly, but I think from a big picture perspective, like, for Christian McCaffrey to be healthy when you get to the playoffs, your fantasy playoffs late in the season, and even obviously the real playoffs, Christian McCaffrey getting fewer carries in week 4 ultimately would behoove the 49ers and his health long term. So I'm curious to see where Kyle Shanahan's at with that push-pull. But from what I've heard from people I trust within the building is that McCaffrey's been awesome this offseason.
Well, that's really encouraging, yeah.
I have no reason to believe that if he's healthy, that there's going to be any substantial drop-off in usage. Like, he's especially with Debo out, like, he's going to play a lot. And even if you're getting 90% of his 2023 production, you're still getting a really, really good player. And I've been saying all camp, because there's these 2 49ers writers who cover the team in person. You have David Lombardi, who is on the side of the spectrum of, like, everything is sunshine and rainbows all the time, no matter what.
Right.
And then there's this other guy, Grant Cohn, who's like, everything is awful and terrible no matter what. And real life is between the 2 of those guys. And they work hard and all that. I'm not trying to take shots. It's just kind of how they go about it. And something is in the middle. So I'm not going to be like, wow, so-and-so said Christian McCaffrey looks great, but so-and-so said he looks terrible. It's just, is he practicing? Is he participating? Is he being weirdly shut down for a week? And like, oh, we're just giving him this set of practices off. Like, oh, he's participating at, Kyle Shanahan said it's the same plan they had him on in 2023. That's why I, going into this year, am optimistic, barring a preseason injury at some point.
Right. Yeah. And ranking that we had mentioned, I talked about this on my show, basically trying to figure this out and put this together. Maybe next off season we'll work on it, but it's the can't help themselves rankings. So Sean McVay, I think, would be at the top of that. He can't help himself. He's just going to play one guy because he doesn't trust anybody else. That's why, going back through the years, McVay has been awesome in terms of producing. His offenses tend to produce fantasy superstars, just because he trusts the guy he trusts and refuses to put anybody else on the field. I think Shanahan is like one slight tier below that. Especially with McCaffrey. I mean, going back a couple of years ago, you mentioned it, Kyle. He like scored, I think, 100 points more than the second place running back. And it was like partly due to the fact they were chasing these records. He scored a touchdown, and I don't know how many ever. It was like some certain amount of games in a row, 20-something games in a row. He scored a touchdown. They're like leading by 30 late in the game, and he's still in there like running the ball in the red zone. That's both good and bad, I think. You know what I mean? Like, from a fantasy point of view, you love that. You love the guy that, well, obviously, McCaffrey is super competitive. He wants to be out there, and then Shanahan can't help himself. He's going to put McCaffrey out there. That's great. But also, it makes you scared for McCaffrey's long-term health and like health late in the season. So it's a double-edged sword.
One thing I'm curious as to your opinion about is Christian McCaffrey versus Saquon Barkley. I know Danny Heifetz on your podcast has mentioned this quite a few times. Like, somebody, I forget what the numbers are, but somebody who has received as many touches as Saquon got last year, history shows there tends to be a precipitous fall off the following season. And I'm curious, like, do you weigh that sort of with the same level of fear as Christian McCaffrey's injury concerns? Or is it like Saquon's just so awesome, and he was so awesome last season that you don't really have any reason aside from, history, which might not be tangible when it comes to
And I think it's like, it's one of those things where history suggests it's not good. I think logic suggests that when you have almost 500 touches in a season. 500. I heard Evan Silva put it this way: when you have 500 car crashes in a season that you're going through in terms of like the hits you're taking, obviously he's not getting hit on every play, but he had 482 touches last year, including the playoffs, 24 per game. And he's not getting any younger. He's like 5 years older than Bijan and Gibbs. So you have to take all these things into account. And at the same time, obviously when history suggests that could happen, it doesn't guarantee that it will happen. And Barkley is definitely one of those guys that he's different. You know what I mean? Like he's always been one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen in this era. And he's playing on a perfect offense with an awesome offensive line. The tush push obviously is going to help him get closer into the red zone. There's all these variables that you have to weigh, and it's just like, I think I just go back to, it is your ability to deal with risk and how willing you are to have that risk. It's like, I kind of just approach it. I'm not trying to get middle of the pack in my league. Like
right.
Barkley and Saquon and CMC and whoever, like these guys, the opportunity cost of passing them up is kind of scary, especially at the running back position, because there's only a handful of guys that get that many touches. So you kind of just have to go for it, I feel like. And if it doesn't work out, oh well.
It feels like the other person in that mix, and we haven't really mentioned him, is Derrick Henry, because he's 48 years old, but he's just going to have 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns or whatever.
And he's another perfect example of a guy that's just built differently. Like going back, I mean, I feel like we've been talking about when is he going to wear out for the last like 6 years or whatever.
Ridiculous.
And every year he gets 1 million touches. He's just literally a giant on the field. He's so much bigger than any other running back out there. And he's actually a guy that I'm targeting a ton this year, because last year he had 1,900 yards and 18 touchdowns, and it felt like he left meat on the bone, because Lamar Jackson threw for 41 touchdowns. Like that's probably not going to happen again. This is still going to be a really good offense for the Ravens. They're going to be protecting a lot of leads. The game scripts, I think, are most of the time going to be pretty favorable for Derrick Henry. You're going to have a few duds because they maybe are playing from behind in a game or two here or there. But for the most part, Henry, like if he scored 25 touchdowns this year, would it surprise you whatsoever in this offense when they're playing with leads and leaning on him to close out games? And, obviously the fear of injury is there, and it's always there with Derrick Henry, but he's managed to keep trucking this long. And I don't, it didn't really seem like he was slowing down last year. So he's like legendary for how he takes care of his body as well. So there's all these variables that you kind of can just thumb your nose at, like the historical precedents, and just kind of say, I'm going to ride these guys and, until they wear out.
Yeah. Is George Kittle the next highest ranked 49er in your rankings?
He is. Yeah. And I love Kittle this year. You kind of mentioned it with CMC. He's my tight end 3. I don't think you can put him in the same tier as Bowers and McBride just based on target rate alone. Like I think Bowers had like a 25% target rate. McBride was like 22 or 23, or I might have those flipped. But and then Kittle is sitting there at 18%. It's just not going to be as reliable week in and week out. He was much more dependent on touchdowns. But that being said, I think his target rate is going to go up this year because of the losses in the 49ers offense in terms of Debo's gone. Who knows what's going on with Ayuk? Who knows what's going on with Jauan Jennings? You have Ricky Pearsall, who flashed at the end of last year, but he's still going to be basically a first-year guy, or like 1.5, like half a year behind him. And so I think they're going to lean on Kittle. He's going to be kind of go back to that. You guys can tell me if you think this is real. Go back to kind of like using him in the screen game a ton, yards after the catch, let him go out there in space and do his thing like he was doing earlier on in his career. And obviously, Brock Purdy loves him in the red zone. It's been like established that he just looks for Kittle, trusts Kittle, and Kittle obviously can get open. So I love everything about Kittle this year, just based on kind of like all the different variables. It feels like he's going to have a huge year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Kittle's target rate is going to go up because Niners signed Luke Farrell, blocking tight end from Jacksonville. And there were a lot of instances, particularly on like 3rd and long over the last couple of years, when the 49ers specifically have had issues at tackle with Trent Williams not being healthy, where they keep Kittle in to block and pass protection on like 3rd and 8.
Yeah.
And it would seem kind of crazy, but it also showed that Kyle Shanahan didn't have a lot of faith in who was blocking along the offensive line then. I think with Farrell in tow now, maybe that changes. Maybe that allows Kittle to get more of those routes. And obviously Trent Williams has to stay healthy. But I also think, like you said, with the receiver position being a little bit more in flux, that we're going to see more Kittle running routes. And he's Brock Purdy's favorite red zone target. I think Kittle now too is just kind of getting a whiff of like, maybe I'm a Hall of Fame type guy. And like he has a couple years to kind of cement that legacy for himself. And obviously he's going to have the Taylor Swift bump since they're friends now. So I think Kittle.
Did you, Danny?
No.
yeah. Maybe want to bump him ahead of McBride because of that.
Yeah.
No, but I think Kittle should be in for a big year. I think Brock Purdy really likes Kittle, and I think Kittle is looking good in camp, and the signs from like a environment standpoint, the receiver situation point to him getting more of a target share.
Is there any concern for you, Danny, that you have Brock Bowers as tight end 1 right now?
I think the concern would be, I'm pretty much all in on Bowers. I just think Bowers is the best, but the concern you would have is the offense changes so much this year for the Raiders. I think it's, obviously Pete Carroll going back through the years, he's always wanted to play slow. He's always wanted to run the ball a ton. And obviously you have this uncertain situation with a new quarterback. Maybe they don't have chemistry for the first like 5 or 6 games, whatever. There's a lot of variables with Bowers that kind of like you could worry about. But I just think he's so good, it's not going to matter. You know what I mean? I think the improvement that the team is going to see at quarterback going from, Aiden O'Connell, Minshew, and Desmond Ritter to Geno Smith is just monumental. Geno Smith loves to push the ball down the field. He's not afraid to pass over the middle of the field. I think Bowers is going to just go off. Plus, it's like a concentrated passing game with Bowers, Jacoby Myers, and probably some Ashton Genty, and like who else is there in Las Vegas? So I think that's going to be huge.
So I think it's easy to put McCaffrey and Kittle at the top of the 49ers fantasy rankings. What are you doing right now with Jauan Jennings with his calf injury?
What do you say you do here? I've kind of steadily moved him down. Obviously, the contract situation, it's not a huge worry, I guess, in terms of just like he's asking for a new contract, all that stuff. I don't think he's going to miss games, but it is a distraction. It is keeping him, from, I guess, like focusing fully. And then obviously now he's got an injury. What was the injury again? A shoulder injury? Calf injury. Which, and that's right. It was the he re-aggravated it or whatever. So that's always like a worrisome thing. This is kind of the lesson that we try and apply lessons year in and year out. And the aggravation of a prior injury is something that on our show we're kind of like, oh God, this is a little bit terrifying because those things tend to linger. And I think you sent me the quote from Shanahan where he's like, "We got no timeline. There's no timeline.
Don't have one." Oh, God.
So that's great. Love indefinite timelines on injuries. So I've kind of steadily moved him down and inversely moved Pearsall up.
I think that's probably smart. I think the best thing to do with situations like Jennings is see if you can get your draft as close to the start of the regular season as possible, so you get a little bit of clarity on it. But yeah, there is no clarity. Kyle and I had talked about it on our show a few times, and Kyle made the point, and I think he's dead on, that with Jennings practicing and participating in training camp despite wanting a new contract, that was a good sign towards maybe a contract getting done before the season started. But now that he's injured, it's like this is why people hold out.
Right.
Like this, the risk injury, particularly given he's dealt with a calf injury throughout the offseason. So yeah, when he plays, particularly with Deebo Samuel out, I think Jennings would be probably at top 3 in targets among all 49ers pass catchers with CMC and Kittle. But yeah, the situation at receiver is really interesting. I think Demarcus Robinson has had a good training camp, but he's facing a suspension from a DUI. So he might be out the first couple games. I don't know how that's going to impact his fantasy value or if he has any, but it wouldn't surprise me if we look up at the end of the year and if Demarcus Robinson plays 15 games and it's like, oh, Demarcus Robinson had 50 catches and was 4th on the Niners and scored like 6 touchdowns. Like that wouldn't be crazy to me.
Yeah.
And I guess the wild card would be Pearsall. And it sounds like Pearsall's really come on the last few days in camp. Obviously a former first-round pick. Had a crazy rookie year, got shot right before his rookie season started.
Yeah.
But the
the
Niners,
like one of those variables is like, okay, how do we figure out what to do with this, right? Like,
I don't even know how to talk about it, let alone consider it from like a fantasy perspective.
Right.
But I think Pearsall, if you were gonna say, all right, who's like the sleeper on the 49ers roster from a fantasy perspective, Pearsall's that guy. Because he's a first-round talent, Kyle Shanahan has done pretty well at evaluating receivers that they do draft early, like in the first and second round. Day 2, day 3, those guys can be pretty hit and miss. But if it's a first-round receiver, a la Brandon Ayuk, Shanahan usually has a pretty good grasp on those guys. And it looks like Pearsall fits that same mold. He's just got to stay healthy and got to get the reps.
Yeah.
Where do you have Pearsall ranked?
So right now I have Pearsall at wide receiver 38, 81st overall. Which is still being pretty conservative in terms of like not pushing him up too far. I still don't really know exactly how this is going to shake out. And then I've dropped Jennings down to wide receiver 43, and that might be too high at this point. And like if he's not playing, obviously he doesn't have any value. So,
sure.
And then obviously Ayuk, don't know what the situation with him is. I think right now we're all assuming he's going to miss at least the first 4 games. And then it'll be one of those situations where he probably will have 5 catches one game, even when he's back, and then nothing the next game, kind of deal where he's kind of working back from the injury, get back to full speed. And so, yeah, I think Pearsall to me feels like the best bet in this offense. And obviously, first round pick, really good route runner, great hands. And obviously he was a little bit older, I think, as a prospect, but still just a lot of boxes that he checks. Obviously first round pick, and they have a lot of conviction in him. They see a vision for him to be a big part of their offense. And then of course they got rid of Debo like a little bit after that. So that kind of shows you how they had planned this out like plan it out in like a 5-year plan or whatever versus just like right away. So I'm excited about Pearsall. I think, obviously the way he finished the season last year was really exciting. Some pretty big games that kind of flew under the radar because the 49ers were just kind of out of it. But he showed enough for me to be pretty excited about it. And obviously I think Purdy has a pretty good connection with him and trusts him and all that. So I'm cautiously optimistic that, like you said, if he can stay healthy, he could be one of those sleepers.
Danny, I know you're a draft guy. If you haven't looked at Ricky Pearsall's spider graph, I would give that thing a gander when you get.
I just love a spider.
I just remember he had one of the most absurd 3-cone numbers, I believe it was, or was it the short shuttle? He was like, I think it was the 3 cones, like 6 seconds.
6.64, 93rd percentile. His vert 42 inches, 97th percentile. Broad jump 88th percentile. 20-yard shuttle 89th percentile. Not a huge guy. He was 6'1", 189 at the combine, but the movement skills are really what jump out.
Yeah. When I think of him in college, I just think of that crazy catch that he had. Obviously, he did a lot of other good things too, but when a guy can do that, you're like, okay, there might be something here.
Yeah. That's one of those things. I used to do this bit with when Chris was the managing editor at Niners Wire. I would do this bit where I'd be watching college football on a Saturday and see a guy make a play like that, and I would write up an article about like how the Niners need to draft him on the strength of this one thing that he did. Pearsall would have gotten one of those for sure.
100%.
How do you go about evaluating from a fantasy perspective a guy who had a rookie season like him? Like take away the getting shot aspect, just like missing 6 games, a strong first couple of games, then nothing. Finish the season strong. How do you evaluate him against some of the guys around him in your rankings?
I mean, it's hard because I'm reminded of a few years ago. This is kind of a while ago now, but Dante Pettis had I believe that was his name. No, not Dante Pettis.
It was Dante Pettis. He was a monster in 2018.
Finished the season like really strong and came up like whatever. I was like convinced this guy was going to be the next big thing, and then he like basically did nothing after that. So you have to be kind of careful about reading too much into short like amounts of time or whatever, splitting the season up into like 5 games. The football is just so much. There's so many variables. But that being said, I think he has the tools to emerge and be a consistent threat in this offense. They obviously have a lot of conviction in drafting him in the first round. So there's like no reason for me to discouraged right now, other than, if he can, hopefully he can stay healthy. Because it feels like this was their vision, and obviously they didn't plan on him getting shot and missing half of the season. So that's not in anyone's control. But when he's been out there and healthy, he's looked pretty damn good. So, you have to feel pretty good about it. You kind of have to, project from there. But again, like flash in the pans happen all the time. So you can't get over your skis. And that's obviously why I haven't pushed him a ton yet.
Who's directly ahead of him?
Oh, let's see. Hold on. So he's in the range with, it's funny, he's actually right behind Debo in terms of receiver. He's like behind Xavier Worthy, Debo, Khalil Shakir, Jaden Reed, that kind of cohort of receivers, Jordan Addison, probably guys that are going to be pretty inconsistent week in, week out. Not necessarily the number one receiver on their team. There's kind of a muddle of players, or like muddling of the hierarchy in terms of like how many targets these guys are going to get, how many snaps are going to play. Good players, but maybe uncertain roles. And I think he fits in pretty perfectly right there.
I was going to make the case to move him up, and that just sounds right to me. So good work.
I mean, I could, like, honestly, and if you go a little bit higher, you got Chris Olave and Jerry Jeudy, Jacoby Myers. I feel pretty good about Jacoby Myers. Jerry Jeudy and Chris Olave, like, what do we do with those guys? Jerry Jeudy's playing in the Browns offense where you don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Chris Olave has the injury with history with the concussions. That's a major worry, obviously, but then also playing in an offense where you don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be. You don't even know who it's going to be yet. So, if someone wanted to take Ricky Pearsall over Jerry Jeudy, I wouldn't blink. But, there's kind of this whole big tier here of guys that are, I think, really good players, but uncertain situations.
Being a draft guy, the Niners used a 5th-round pick on Jauan Jennings from Oregon. And I'm not sure if you watched more of him or not, because he played in the Pacific Northwest. But just curious, like, from what you saw from him at Oregon, and what you know about him as a prospect, do you think that he's maybe I don't know, waiver wire pickup maybe early in the season, or somebody, if I don't know, like, it seems like Isaac Orendo is pretty firmly the number 2 guy, but in terms of Jordan James as a prospect, do you think he's good enough to factor into the Niners offense from a fantasy perspective at any point this season?
If he's healthy, yeah, absolutely. I really liked him coming out. He's like kind of one of my favorite sleepers in the draft. I had him in my top 100, 76 overall. I think there was questions of overall top end speed and things like that, but overall he's really quick in the short area, good tackle breaker, good all around skill set, runs low to the ground, good balance, good contact balance, all that stuff. And I really liked him, and he's tough and physical. He's putting his shoulder down and running guys. I can see exactly why Shanahan would like a player like him. And obviously it's hard to read Shanahan's mind. He kind of is one of the, like, in the fantasy world, he's a finicky guy. Like,
he's all over the place.
Yeah, and it's like, one day he loves the guy, the next day he's in the doghouse, and it's kind of hard to figure out. And I don't feel like. And obviously, this is from the outside looking in. You guys on the beat probably know a lot better than me, but it doesn't feel like Garendo's super entrenched at this point yet. So obviously he's the next man up. Garendo is, but he's had injury issues along the way as well. He kind of late in the season had a chance to kind of be the lead back, and he kept getting hurt. So maybe Jordan James could step in there, but he's got something going on right now too, right? He's
a shoulder.
He's uncertain. Yeah, uncertain timeline as well. So I don't know. I would say he's like a guy to wait and see on. But it would not be surprising if his name was on the waiver wire list at some point this season. As a handcuff type of guy, because I think he's really good, and I'm excited to see him play. But it sounds like he might not be on the field for a little bit.
Yeah, get ready to learn Patrick Taylor, buddy.
Yeah, Patrick Taylor.
Yeah.
And that's the point. Like, Patrick Taylor, great special teams guy. For all of the discussion about Kyle Shanahan's ability to find linebacker or running backs late in the draft and undrafted guys, those guys don't play unless they can play special teams. Like, it's Christian McCaffrey, one backup, and the third guy, or a fourth guy if he's active, has to contribute on special teams. And that's one of the hangups they've had with, like, Trey Sermon and Ty Davis Price.
Oh yeah,
that those guys just don't get the reps, and those guys might not be good. They haven't proven to be good elsewhere in the league. But one of the reasons why they've struggled to develop is because they don't do well on special teams, and Shanahan is just not going to give them opportunities on the active roster. So with Jordan James, I wonder, like, all right, is this going to be a situation where he's only up if CMC or Isaac Guerrero is hurt, because Patrick Taylor does contribute on special teams? It's one of the weird quirks with Shanahan, is like he'll draft a running back and talk about how much he loves the running back, but it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of scouting being like, can this guy actually play on special teams, and will that be helpful?
Yeah,
because I don't know if Jordan James can play special teams at all, and I would imagine if he can't, then he's not going to be up on game days as long as the other two guys are healthy.
Yeah.
What do you have Amir Abdullah ranked?
I mean, honestly, dude, going back, I loved Abdullah coming out because my dad's a Nebraska fan. So, and Abdullah was sort of a legend at Nebraska. He's like, I can't remember. He won some award as like the strongest man. So, like, and back in the day, that like meant something. But back when Nebraska was pretty good, and he's just kind of a athletic freak of nature, but he just wasn't big enough, I think, and had some injuries and didn't pan out. But there was he's made a pretty good career. I think he's been in the league for like 10 years or something like that. So, if he gets a chance to play, he's good on passing downs at least. I don't think he's going to be a fantasy factor at all, but I love Amir Abdullah. He's the best.
I think there's a legitimate chance he's playing snaps for the 49ers this year.
He's 32. How long has he been? He was in the league since 2014. So, yeah, he's made a decade out of it. That's like a lot as a running back.
Yeah.
So, obviously he's never been a star, but he hangs around, hanging around. He's like the Josh Johnson of running backs.
And shout out.
I feel like I'm just going to give a take, and I want to know what you think about it. I feel like there's a world where Brock Purdy wins some people their leagues this year. Where Jauan Jennings gets healthy and Christian McCaffrey's healthy the whole year and George Kittle's good to go and Ricky Pearsall is a baller and Brock Purdy throws for like 38 touchdowns and 10 interceptions and 4,300 yards.
Yeah. I think there is a world in which, he's been a top 10 quarterback the last 2 seasons.
Where do you have him ranked?
I got him ranked. I when I was getting ready for this, I was like, it's probably too low because I put guys like Justin Fields and Bo Nix and a few other guys above him just because of like the running upside. You kind of want to chase that, but then at the same time, Purdy does run a little bit himself. He, as I like to say, he's a sneaky little shit. He just is such a good scrambler. He's the type of quarterback. It's probably like similar to how like people used to feel about when watching Russell Wilson play. It's like you got him bottled up in the pocket. You got everybody, is like not open downfield. And like you do everything perfectly, and then the sneaky little shit runs around and gets a first down, and it just drives you insane. It's like the most demoralizing thing in the world. Purdy's got a little bit of that with him. I think last year, let's see here. He averaged just over 4 points per game as a rusher alone. Which is pretty high. Like that's pretty decent. He had 5 touchdowns rushing. That's probably not going to happen again. So maybe that's not super reliable, but like you said, it wouldn't be all that surprising if they kind of have to lean on the pass a little bit more. Last year he had 20 touchdowns. If he gets like 27, 28, he'll finish as a top 10 quarterback again and be like really valuable. I think it's the same deal you see with every like quarterback that comes on and is a late round pick or a mid round pick. People just don't believe in you until you've like established it and proven it for like 5 years. I think that's kind of what's going on with Brock Purdy is like people just don't really quite believe it yet, even though he's been great the last couple of years. He just got a massive contract. All signs point to this guy being pretty damn good, but people just aren't quite ready to buy in. I think it's also too just he's not very big. He's definitely like a small frame. I think there's a worry there too with like injury and all that.
I need sneaky little shit to be a badge on the draft guide next year.
That's a good idea, honestly.
SLS.
How do you? I want to ask one more thing about the receiving core. Their rookie Jordan Watkins and less about like Jordan Watkins the player, and more about if you're a 49ers fan and I assume you are listening to this podcast, you may want 49ers on your fantasy team. How do you gauge a guy like Jordan Watkins where okay, maybe you want him on your team, he might be the 4th receiver, but if there's an injury or two, maybe he's thrust into a bigger role. Is that worth taking with your final pick? I think stashing him for a while.
Yeah, I think you could. There's probably like 100 guys that you can take with your last pick. So there's always sort of like, you take a handcuff to one of the top running backs. You take a guy that you think is gonna, vastly outperform his ADP. You take a second quarterback if your first quarterback isn't doing anything or has a better matchup in certain years. Like you could, or you could take a second tight end just in case your first tight end doesn't work out. There's a lot of strategies with how to use your last pick. And it's kind of funny that I think people think about how to use their last pick a lot, which is kind of funny. But you could definitely throw him in that mix just because of the uncertainty at the receiver position. I mean, this is a good offense, great play caller, guy who schemes people open. I mean, just like Jennings last year is a perfect example of this. Like, came out of nowhere, relative nowhere, and put up some really good fantasy, useful games. And so, when you trust the quarterback, you trust the play caller. This is going to be probably a top 10 offense at the end of the day. And obviously, you bristle a little bit at the term someone's going to have to catch passes on a bad offense. You kind of want to. That can be a siren song that you don't want to follow. But on a really good offense, and with a good quarterback, I think it really does matter. So, if Pearsall gets hurt, if Jennings is out for indefinitely, then Watkins, who I don't think anyone really knows much about, if he's out there running around and is a feature part of this offense, it sounds like he's playing pretty well at camp. He's gotten a little bit of hype. He could certainly be one of the beneficiaries of that. I don't know who else would be on that list. Jacob Cowing, who got hurt also. Everybody's hurt, it feels like, on this team.
Can I interest you in some Russell Gage?
Sure. Yeah. These names that he's oh, I've heard that name before. Isaiah Hodgins. He's been around. Yeah. He's still on their roster. Andy Isabella is on the 49ers.
Yep.
He was a second round pick.
UMass.
So yeah, I don't know. It sounds like right now, if everybody else is hurt, Watkins probably be the next man up. But yeah, I don't know. You probably can't rely on it, certainly. But I think last round pick, why not?
Yeah, I would again point out that the best thing you could possibly do is have your draft as late as possible before the start of the season. So you can at least see who's on the 49ers roster.
Robbie Chosen is on the 49ers right now. Oh my God.
Yeah, he is.
Yep.
I had no idea.
Sacrificed Marquez Callaway.
Yeah. Danny, I feel like we have to, since we have you here, we'll go out on a Seahawks question.
Sure.
Are you more confident that you will get a post 49ers Sam Darnold, or are you at all worried about getting a pre 49ers Sam Darnold?
I mean, obviously I am worried about that. I do think they'll manage the offense enough that he's not going to implode and be useless. Like he kind of was early on in the season, where he's a real big liability. I doubt he's going to do what he did last year with the Vikings. I think that was kind of, the situation was kind of perfect for him in a lot of ways. The offensive line did kind of collapse at the end of the year, and I think there was some fault to just the interior offensive line could not hold up for nearly long enough for the Vikings to do what they wanted to do, and that obviously he got blamed for that. Darnold got blamed for that, and he obviously shares a lot of the blame for it, but when he's kind of in a system where things are running smoothly and they're doing play action and he can push the ball down the field, he has the tools to do that. I think he'll still be useful. But to me, and I've said this basically since the day that the trades and sign happen, the Seahawks downgraded at quarterback this year. I think Geno is a better quarterback than Darnold. Darnold has, I think, more upside because he's younger and kind of what he showed last year. And I think that's theoretical upside, but I still kind of fear that he's going to be he's capped certainly with what he could be because based on what we've seen his entire career, just too many turnovers, inability to deal with pressure, those are the two big things that really worry me. So the Seahawks are going to run the crap out of the ball and try and protect him and slow it down and do all the things that Pete Carroll did, which is hilarious because everyone was so excited to get rid of Pete Carroll, and now the Seahawks new coach Mike McDonald is kind of just using the same strategy on offense as they used to. So that's probably going to drive people crazy, but I am excited to see what the Seahawks can do on the run game. I think overall their quarterback is worse, but maybe the scheme, and just kind of the shift in philosophy will be good enough to kind of even that out.
Who wins the NFC West?
That's really hard. I don't think I trust the Rams quite as much as everyone else does in terms of it just feels like they are, especially with the Stafford news. I always kind of considered them a house of cards in a way, but now with Stafford potentially not playing for a little while, who knows? Jimmy G is their starter now. So I think the Rams are the favorite, and I would probably pick the Rams just based on the overall top talent that they have. But I think they're a house of cards, and things could go wrong for them pretty quickly if a couple guys get hurt. And I guess more than other teams, they are sort of top heavy.
The 37-year-old dude with a back injury. It's like, who among us? You know?
Yeah. My favorite expression is like, you never used to have a bad back. Like once your back is bad, it's always bad, right? So it's a little disconcerting that he's like not going to be participating in these joint practices. They're holding him out. I'm not panicking yet on that with Stafford, but obviously in fantasy world, like Puka and Devontae Adams and Kyron are all very high picks. And, there's a lot riding on Stafford being out there. So I would say the Rams are the favorite. And then probably the 49ers. I don't know if I'm quite buying the Cardinals hype right now, but I think it's just going to be a hard division overall.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
yeah.
I think that's it. Well, see you later.
Hey, guys. Big goals, huh?
Really appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much. Ringer Fantasy Football Show, the Ringer NFL Draft Show, but that's the same feed.
Same feed.
Subscribe to the Ringer Fantasy Football Show now.
Just subscribe. Also, go to our YouTube channel. We're trying to launch this YouTube channel. People like watching video, so
that's relatable. True.
Go check out our YouTube. We got all kinds of stuff in there.
Real quick, have you guys settled on the punishment for finishing last in the fantasy league, or is that coming up?
Not yet. We've been inundated with millions and millions of suggestions. I think right now we're trying to thread the needle where our bosses would actually be willing to do this. We haven't really checked with them that they're going like if any of our bosses lose this league, if they're actually going to do any of this stuff. But we'll try. We'll use peer pressure. So it has to be something that's not, you're not going to go to like a Waffle House for 24 hours, something like that. These are people with children and whatnot. So if you got any ideas, let me know. You guys, do you guys have any good last place punishments for your leagues?
No, I've never been in a league with last place punishment.
I personally think this is not going to happen, but I think it would be really funny if you have to go out and get like your yellow belt. I think that's like the funniest punishment. You have to go out and take enough karate lessons to get your yellow belt, like, or jiu-jitsu or whatever you want.
There's definitely a line because I've seen some that are ridiculous. Like, don't do that. Like that's dangerous. Like you have to fill up a bathtub and then hop in with a plugged-in toaster. Like what? That's crazy. But just the ones that are just like an inconvenience.
Totally, it's an inconvenience or slightly gross. We had a good idea from someone the other day that was you have to eat 2 cans of soup cold.
Disgusting.
Like it's an inconvenience and it's funny content, but it's not gonna it's not gonna stress you out too much.
Is it condensed soup or can you water it down a little bit?
No, you can't water it down. I don't think.
Stick in a spoon.
Yeah, it's gonna just.
I was so glad you guys brought it up because when Bill Simmons had his show on HBO, the promo for it was just saying takes, and he went, "I think soup is the perfect food."
Yep.
And I was so happy you guys brought that up because I think it's just so perfect. Like, all right, fine, here, eat it then.
I don't think he had cold soup in mind, but I mean, it wouldn't be that far out for him to do that. I don't think that somebody was saying like you have to do a stand-up routine. You have to go like do an open mic. I'm like, there's no way in hell you could get me to do that. I'll quit my job. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just escape and live off the grid if you want me to do that.
I've seen people get like bad tattoos, like that type of stuff.
Funny. Yeah.
But
great.
I think we're more in like change your Twitter avatar for the season type range than like get a tattoo. But
the next time the winner's car needs new tires, you have to take it to the shop and wait all day.
You don't have to pay. You just have to go.
Have to pay. Yeah, you have to do it.
Yeah, that's the zone we're looking at right there. I like that.
Okay,
I'll think about it. I'm gonna think hard and then send an email.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Danny Kelly, the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. It is my very favorite podcast. I will stop another podcast in the middle to listen to the new Ringer Fantasy Football Show that's out. So salute, appreciate you guys and appreciate your time. Hopping on Candle Crown, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.